I don't think you should do trend hopping. Don't try and go into AI and automation and all that stuff just because everyone's talking about it. What you see is the 0.01% of the people that made it or got lucky or both. But what you're not seeing is all the other 99% of the people that actually failed.
The Next Gen Sales Leaders Podcast. Coffees for Closers.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Next Gen Sales Leader Podcast. My name is Benjamin Reed. I'm here with Thibault Garcia. He is the founder of Reachly. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ben. It's good to finally get on that podcast after having talked about it on the way back from the CrossFit session.
Yeah, so we met, for anyone listening, we went to the first ever Clay conference in San Francisco a few weeks ago, which, you know, for anybody not in the GTM or B2B marketing space, it probably means nothing. But for anybody in the space, it was like kind of like a Mecca style event. And so for context, where we met was it was like 6 a.m. Brandon Charlson decides to get everybody together, and Brandon was on my podcast. He'll be actually, by the time this launches, he'll be a podcast guest for everyone who wants to see Brandon. But one of the top guys in the clay world, real smart guy. And he also happens to be like a basically fighter pilot, Air Force jacked guy. I don't know if he actually did fighter pilot, but anyways, he invited us to go to CrossFit right before this conference. And I don't do CrossFit. So I got paired with Thibault, and he absolutely crushed me in these overhead presses. So that's how we met.
Oh, it was surreal. I mean, Brendan, when Brendan said he was hosting the kind of, not hosting, but inviting people to the kind of CrossFit workout, I was like, is it really a good idea to travel 40 minutes to go to a CrossFit workout the morning of like the biggest conference? The reason why I flew all the way across the world to come. And I was like, yeah, it was a very good, it was great. I'm very happy I attended.
So tell people, where are you from? And obviously you came into San Francisco for the event, but obviously you flew from somewhere.
Yep. So I'm French, born and bred. Grew in France my whole life. Lived here and there past my 20s for some time, but then I ended up in Bangkok, Thailand, simply because the last year of my master degree, I had a 1-year exchange opportunity, and I did that in a MBA program here in Bangkok, Thailand. It's a very good school. It's a very good school in Bangkok, actually. And I was never really planning to stay here. I was always supposed to go back to London because I lived there before and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed England, really enjoyed London, but life. And I mean, I really enjoyed my time in Thailand. I was like, oh, why not? So after graduating and spending my whole year as an exchange student here, I had a bunch of friends in tech, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And one of them was like, hey, my wife works at Thibault, which was pre-public company back then. Now they're a public company. I think listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and the APAC headquarters was in Bangkok. And they're like, "Oh, you've done sales. Do you understand tech?" I was like, "I mean, I think I can figure it out." And pretty much they hired me, and that's how my whole kind of tech career, went. And then one job led to another, and now it's been 10 years, and I'm still here in Bangkok, Thailand. I have my own lead gen agency called Reachly, and that's pretty much the
awesome.
Gist of it.
I saw that you were over there in that part of the world, and I've always been meaning to get over to Thailand. I have a lot of friends that do Muay Thai, so they're always like over in Thailand doing Muay Thai. Yeah. I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, so I live half the year in Brazil with my wife. But I very much resonate with cultures outside the United States generally, and so I have to get over there. So in terms of building a business overseas, and I guess for you, maybe it's normal because you went to school there, but what's it like? Is it different than, say, if you were building it in Europe, or how does that work? This is a break in the podcast to bring you our sponsor, ReadyOps.com. That is REVYOPS.com, the #1 GTM data management platform for your GTM and revenue operations data on planet Earth. If you are using the modern stack of Clay and Instantly and Email Bison and RB2B and Trigify and all these various tools scattered across the wind, we unify all that data all into one place so you don't have any duplicates, a unified view of every single contact so you can see all the data and all the the activities across all the platforms all in one place. It will allow you and your team to move faster, to get better attribution across the entire funnel, and to make a heck of a lot more money. Go to reviops.com, check out how you can get started today with me on a call where we'll learn about your data management problems and how we can get you guys to the next level of growth. See you guys at reviops.com. Go there now. It will be in the show notes as well down below. Let's get back to the podcast.
Well, different than building in Europe, definitely I would say yes. It would probably also be very different than building in the US, just because of the culture, right? You mentioned earlier, living in a different country, you get different culture. I think that's actually one of the things that probably attracts me the most by living abroad, is that it really opens your horizon. You know, you're not just like focused in your mindset, in your culture, in your way of thinking. You actually be like, oh, I see, I would have thought about it that way. But because every day you're meeting people from different background, culture, and coming from different kind of places in life. To your question, there's pros and cons. I would say the pros is that obviously the cost of living and everything is a lot cheaper here, so you can get decent talent for you're not breaking the bank, as opposed to what it would take in the US to get similar level type of talent. So even in Europe, to be frank, cons is that time zone is horrible. I mean, at first when I started the agency, I was like, hey, we're going to be the first lead gen agency in APAC. Great, we still want to do that. But then actually Asia Pacific is quite a small market when it comes to lead gen, just because the data is not so good. So there's only so much you can do. And now I think that agencies not using Clay are really behind if they do lead gen. So we really focus onto that. That's why we're the first Clay certified agency in Asia Pacific. But our focus in terms of clientele has switched a lot from APAC to now UK US, right? So we have a bit of a 50-50 split with our clients. UK US is probably a 50% right now, and the rest is Asia Pacific. So Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, and some here and there, some in Dubai, some in Thailand. The biggest challenge is time zone, right? So when you work in an online business and you can serve clients all over the world, it's great, but then you've got client messaging you at like 3 a.m., some other messaging you at 5 p.m., 7 p.m., and then you got to assign different CSM to different time zone. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but it's an amazing ride.
So I can't imagine, because I have enough trouble just dealing with customer success in like one time zone or two time zones. But I feel like I'm in like also a relatively bad time zone, because I'm on Pacific Standard. So for me, everybody else is either going to bed or they're in the middle of their day when I wake up.
Yeah.
I think the only worst time zone is probably Hawaii, because I used to have to wake up at like
Australia probably as well.
Yeah, I don't even know what time zone that is. In fact, I don't even think I even talk to people from Australia. They might as well just be on a different planet for that exact reason, right? So let me ask you this. How did you grow the business? Because you're out there, it's not as nearly as easy to network, I would assume, than say if you were in Europe or in the United States. So how did you get started?
Well, I think there's two things. I'll talk about how we got started, and then I'll talk about how we grew the business. But how we got started is quite funny. It's actually during my last corporate job, I worked at Agoda, which is one of the brands of Booking Holdings. Again, the biggest travel company in the world. Agoda is their Asian brand. It's the biggest travel company in Asia Pacific. They have over 4,500 employees, so it's a massive company. I was doing ad tech, media sales, lead gen for them, and B2B sales. And I was about to get married. And I was like, man, I really need more money. Weddings are expensive. And we did two weddings, not just one. So I was like, I need a lot more money. And so I was like, I know how to do lead gen. I've done that for, the last 6 years. At the time, I was only doing LinkedIn automation, like setting up Heritage stuff pretty much. And I was like, I bet this would be pretty valuable to a lot of people. And so I got set up on Fiverr. And I was like, let me put my face and all that on Fiverr and sell my services. And so I did. And for like a couple of months, it was crickets. And after some time, it started picking up. I got a few orders. And at some point, it just blew up. Like blew up in my standard, like meaning after 8-9 months, I was making like $3,000-4,000 a month on Fiverr on top of my full-time job. And I was like, oh, okay. Like there is real interest behind that. People really value lead generation. To them, they don't understand how to set up those very simple workflow, in my opinion, and all that. I was like, what if, and that's kind of what actually got me to tick and say, hey, I want to do a lead gen agency in Asia. So that's how I got started. I was like, proof of concept, people want it, people are paying, I'm getting 5-star review for something that's like not too much work. So what if I was doing something that's very like a lot more intricate than just like setting them up on some LinkedIn automation platform? So that's how I got started. I had a bunch of clients I had signed from Fiverr. I had some leads that I came from Fiverr as well. Once I had enough MRR, I was like, okay, I'll quit my job and do this full time. How I grew the business, I would say LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn outreach, obviously, but LinkedIn content as well. I had decent network in APAC because I had been doing sales and BD and my own lead gen for my previous jobs for 5-6 years already back then. And I just reached out to everyone I knew. I was like, hey, do you need lead gen? Can we help you? Do you need leads? And so that's kind of how I grew. And then one thing led to another. At some point, I discovered Clay. We pivoted from just being like LinkedIn automation to multi-channel, powered by Clay, and
Wow.
here we are.
So, okay, I know that there's going to be people listening who are at the very early part of their career, because right now, you and I know there's just this massive wave of people entering the space. And the people like you are living the dream for some people. You're living in Thailand, you know, you have this a successful business, you're jet setting around the world, going to, you know, do CrossFit at Sculpt. Yeah, I know it sounds like I'm joking, but that's actually some people's real dream. And so you're living this entrepreneurial, you know, journey. What would you say at the very beginning? And I know this is a hard thing to do, but you're there and you're working another job and you're like, you know, I'm going to go on Fiverr. What did you first put on your profile? How did you position yourself? Like what would you do again if you were advising somebody who's just getting started?
That's a tough question. I mean, what I put on my profile, I just talked about my corporate career experience. Actually, fun fact, I don't think many people know that, but when I got started on Fiverr, I didn't know what to sell. So I sold career advice, so how to pass interviews, because I've always done pretty well in interviews. And I was like, hey, I'll coach you on how to pass interviews. I was selling, let me revamp your CV, your resume, because I've always had pretty decent resume. And I was like, when I see resume of people, especially in my career, I got some people that are trying to hire, and I'm like, how can people submit stuff that's so bad? So I had that. I had the LinkedIn automation, and I had one more. Well, I think we were doing LinkedIn revamp, so like redesigning your entire LinkedIn profile, so it kind of looks like a nice landing page. Only the LinkedIn outreach stuff worked. Like the rest, I think I had like one call with someone for a job. Actually, the guy got the job, which was kind of crazy. And I did a couple of resume for some people, and they were happy, but that never really took off. Yeah. So I was like, good. I mean, I'm focused on lead gen, which is what I know and what I like the most. What to answer your question, what to put on there? I mean, what you're good at. Just speak to what you're good at. I think Alex Hormozi always talks about, you know, like, oh, if you want to do something, well, first, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing, right? Have you been, you know, cooking for the last 20 years of your life, an actual chef, and you're focused on that? Then do something around that. Don't try and go into AI and automation and all that stuff just because everyone's talking about it. I don't think you should do trend hopping. I think you should really focus on what you're good at and what you've been spending I mean, if you enjoy it, of course, spending most of your time doing and learning, because those skills are valuable.
Do you feel like, I feel like it's like one of those things where people don't know when to pivot or persist. And it sounds like you went through some failures in the beginning. How long did that take? Like, were you just like, was it kind of not like at your level of awareness because you had a job, or like what was happening? Was this weeks? Was this months? What was it?
Well, first of all, it was months where it was cricket, like nothing happened on Fiverr. I think that the way the algo works and everything is a bit like you need to get like a couple orders for the algo to start pushing you as a legit kind of seller on their marketplace. So, I mean, I was happy I did this while I had a job because I didn't have to do anything. I just got it set up, and then I was like, oh, nothing's happening from it. And at some point, stuff happened. I mean, every other month I was kind of changing my profile, rewriting my bio, taking better pictures, like the widgets, preview, thumbnail. I was redoing that and all that stuff. But like you just said, right, in terms of pivots, I had a couple of offerings. And after trying to sell and have those running for a while, I was seeing that lead gen was the one working the best. And anyway, it worked well for me because that's what I wanted to focus on. But I think at some point I started thinking, okay, I mean, career, yes, good. But like your resume, that's something you do once every X, you know? Or like getting a new job, that's something you do once every like 2-3 years. But lead gen, everybody needs leads. Every business needs leads. You can't grow a business without leads. So that's a lot more valuable to businesses than everything else I'm selling. So, okay, focus on that. So that was kind of my thought process.
I think the hardest thing in the beginning for anybody And the reason I'm spending time on this is because, so often we get into like what the famous or the well-known or what the successful entrepreneur is doing now. But it's like the hardest part, in my opinion, in business is actually getting momentum. and so the hardest thing that most people don't realize is like most people that succeeded probably spent months, if not years, just sitting around going like, is this right? And for me, like, I think that that's an important thing for anybody listening to who's getting started is that do not think in terms of weeks or days or even months. For me, it's like 6 months minimum where you're going to sit there kind of going, is this strange? For me, I failed at my first 8 businesses personally. So like I tried and I thought I had some traction and then I died. And then so I just think it's important that people know we all get started in this kind of fuzzy, strange la la land of like, am I going the right direction? So you,
no one knows.
So
no one knows how they're doing it. Right?
So do you, you got traction and then was it a promotion or did it just naturally just go through word of mouth or how did you start to scale?
Yeah, sorry I interrupted you there, but I meant to say like no one knows what the hell they're doing, right? Everybody's just trying to figure it out. So, and to your earlier point as well, it's all about you will gain momentum, and once you get momentum, it's very exponential what happens. But in order to get that momentum, it's like years. I mean, I'm in two years and a half, almost 3 years of doing Richie. I still don't think we have a successful business yet. In my views, in what I would define a successful business. And it's every day, 7 a.m. to like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. working and trying to do things better, the website better, my content better, the LinkedIn better, our offer better, all these things. And one more thing before we talk about your promotional question. The question about promotion is that very often, and that's kind of like the sad part of social media these days, I find, people will be like, oh yeah, but look at this guy, he did this in 6 weeks and this and that. That doesn't matter. A, you're not him. B, what you see is the 0.01% of the people that made it or got lucky or both. But what you're not seeing is all the other 99% of the people that actually failed, right? So it's like, don't compare yourself to others on social media. Just like stay consistent, do the same thing, find what works. If after enough time you see it's not getting any traction, then maybe yes, pivot to something else. But yeah, you have to stay consistent.
We started seeing some results, and it sounds like out of all the things, lead gen was the thing. But then, how did you double down? Was it okay? I don't even know if you can run ads on Fiverr, but was it just word of mouth or like how did it compound for you? Where was the next level?
Yeah. So on Fiverr, there's a bunch of stuff you could do. You can run ads. You can get like higher seller tiers and everything. But at that time of the Fiverr stuff, I was still in my full-time job. So I wasn't really looking to scale yet and all that stuff. What did I do at the time? I thought it was a bit of a growth hack, but then the Fiverr people told me I couldn't do that, but I still did it. I was duplicating my gigs. So I was offering the same services, but I was just creating multiple gigs for the same thing, but just naming them a bit different and putting different thumbnail so that I would have more of them show up when people would type lead gen. I heard that they cannot shadow ban, but drop your rankings in the search and everything. That never happened, so I was quite happy with that. But yeah, so that was one of the ways to kind of get more traction going on Fiverr. I think I had given myself, about like 8 months after we got traction for me to kind of quit my job. And so that started happening. I got some clients from that. I was like, okay, now I'm going to go and set up an actual company and an actual website and do that and quit my job. Yeah. And then when I did quit my job, that's when I announced it on LinkedIn and started getting those inquiries from there and reaching out to people.
And so then once you transitioned to LinkedIn, did you find it was the DMs that made the difference for you, or was it more the content like you were saying?
At first, the content. When I posted, people were like, what the hell, like this, like, I don't know. It just, I had never really, probably in the 3 years that I spent at Agoda, I posted like 2 or 3 times. When I went to a conference, when we hired some team member or like whatever, like a couple times. So I would never post. So when I started posting, people were like, oh, like everyone was seeing my content and I was getting crazy engagement. And then it died down because I had like no strategy and all that stuff. So it kind of died down. So at first, the first few weeks, I would say content got me definitely a lot of people like to reach out. But then I was already, before even announcing it, doing the whole DM stuff. So I was like connecting with people in the region that I thought could be potential leads. And I've always been doing, this is like an evergreen, always on thing for me. It's like messaging people, connecting with them on LinkedIn, growing the profile and trying to get them just to have you on their radar. And that's it.
You know, it's so funny because like for me, I started posting on LinkedIn really consistently, I would say around this time last year. Because for me, like my background was more oil and gas software, and I started a bunch of businesses in oil and gas. And I decided because I owned an oil and gas fractional revenue operations kind of consulting thing called Upstream Info. And so I was in this weird quasi spot. And this is like for anybody listening who's like, I'm in a certain role or position or branding, and now I'm pivoting into say from resume building to lead gen. For me, it was fractional revenue operations person and founder of SaaS software in the oil and gas industry. And everybody on my LinkedIn profile was oil and gas. And I'm like, shoot, I want to start talking about my other thing, which is let's pivot on LinkedIn to what I've been doing, which is I'm a outbound agency and I'm, building a software. And for me, it was weird because the first, I don't know, a few months, people weren't commenting. People weren't engaging at all. So I had the opposite reaction of you. And just recently, I'm getting these weird reactions. I don't know if you get this at all, but it's like that kind of famous effect where it's like people would jump on sales calls with me and they'll be like, I can't believe I get to talk to you. And I'm like, this is weird, man. Maybe like Hermosi or all these other people are used to it because they're so famous. But I'm just well enough known enough in the space to get that reaction. And it's the strangest thing for me right now. So do you ever get that when you hop on with people?
It happened, I'm not gonna lie, it happened once or twice where she goes, oh, you're the guy from the video on the website. That was one kind of traditional company. It's like, yeah, that's me. And she goes, oh, I wasn't expecting you to, but you're the founder. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting you to be on the call. I thought it was gonna be someone from your team. There was that, and then there was another time where someone that had seen my post was like, oh yeah, I kept seeing richly mentioned in APAC around people talking about lead gen and all that stuff, and I thought you worked there. I didn't think you were the founder, and now I'm in a call with you and I realized you're the founder. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
And I feel like that's
but I'm not to your level of fame.
I wouldn't say I'm at any level of fame. I'm just saying that this is an important marketing psychology hack, which is it's a human thing, and I think everyone should take advantage of it, which is that if you get people to digest any level of long form content of yours, it just makes any type of selling to them infinitely easier in the future. And so it's like on my podcast, this podcast will be viewed by 200, 300 people. Now, there's maybe more people that will talk about it and we'll clip it up and we'll move it around. But those people that watch the clip, they're going to see you, they're going to see me, and they're probably going to go visit the website. And so if they do talk to you or me, there's much higher brand equity right off the bat. And so I just encourage anybody listening to this to, a podcast is such a nice way to get long form content out. People will see it, and long before they ever engage with you, they're listening and following and understanding. And so people are always like, well, why do you do a podcast? I'm like, it's the easiest way to network, learn, create content all at the same time. And it's fun. This is a fun conversation.
Yeah. And build trust. Yeah. No, for sure. I think it's Adam Robinson that talks about the fact that video content, even though it doesn't perform as well as what it used to, it's still his favorite form of content, just because that's the best kind of way to build trust. Because people see you and they're like, oh, that's Ben. I've seen him before. I've watched his content. Then you get on a call with that person. I mean, let's say that person books a call with you. They'll get on the call and they'll be like, they feel like they already know you because they've watched your content. And of course you appear like an authoritative figure in the space and whatnot. That's fine. But because they've already watched your content, then they feel like they know you and they're like, that's Ben, and they know how you're going to speak. They know the way you mimic, the way you move, and etc. just because of that kind of video content. And to your point regarding podcasts, I mean, that's why I started a podcast as well. And that got me crazy results because not only I was able to network with people that are in the space, that have SaaS, that are competitors, that are X, Y, and Z, that also allowed me to get a lot of short form content it allowed me to build, the best connections with people. I mean, we acquired, I don't know if you saw on LinkedIn, we acquired Scale Lab, I think two weeks ago now, or 3 weeks ago now. It was like a lead gen agency out of Singapore and Hong Kong. Youssef and Arno had been building it for the longest time, and they were pivoting in SaaS. I had a podcast with them, I think a year ago, where I was interviewing Youssef about his SaaS and, how they kind of balance agency and SaaS life and work. And thanks to that, we then had this kind of relationship where we talked about the industry and many things. And at some point, I learned that they were trying to kind of sunset the agency. I was like, hey, if you want, I'd be more than happy to take that over and acquire that. And that's kind of how we got into the discussion. I would have never been able to do that by just sending them a cold DM, right? So podcast and just video content is super.
And so how long has your podcast been out?
It's been, I've had it for almost a year now, but I've only had 8 editions so far.
I'm about a year into it, and I have noticed that the first, for anyone, again, this is all for people listening, is that getting started is always the hardest, right? It's like the first episode, you probably don't know what your thumbnail should look like. I remember the first time I did a podcast, I literally Googled, I'm like, how do you create a podcast, And I looked at the Riverside software. Right now we're filming this on Squadcast, which I prefer because it hooks up to Descript, which is my video editing tool. But it was all these questions of what should the setup be? What should the lighting be? How do you introduce people? What happens if you lose the recording? These very kind of basic questions where I was just baffled by it. But I encourage anyone, even if you don't have the podcast software, you know what to do, just get a Zoom account, launch it, record it, and just start talking, because I think the first 5 or 10 episodes are really about feeling comfortable on camera. And I feel like over time, there's just things that now become natural, And so I just think getting it going is the best way.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, the only difference and the only reason why I haven't done it more is because I like to do mine in person. So if you go and check my channels out, I think out of the 8 or the 9, there's only 1 that was done online. The rest is actually a podcast room with where I meet the person and everything. I would have loved to do this in person with you, but maybe one day, who knows? Maybe next year.
We'll meet up in Brazil.
But yeah, yeah, exactly. Because I feel like it's just obviously nicer, but when you work with people all over the world, it's a lot easier to do this online than to do it.
100%. So let's get back to. I'm very interested in knowing. You acquired this new agency a few weeks ago. It sounds like they were moving into a SaaS direction. How did was that your first business acquisition, or how did you think about it? So that's a big milestone in a career. So tell me about what was going through your mind when you did it? Did you have to bring in lawyers, or how would a first time acquirer of a business think through that problem, and how did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I wanted to see whether it made sense for us or not, because obviously we already also are pretty well established in the Asia Pacific region, and many companies and agencies and businesses knows us, not agencies, businesses that need lead gen knows us. So I was like, do I really need to acquire them? But then we had a chat. I understood what the current kind of portfolio was, the MRR and everything. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's interesting. That's also contracted in such duration that it makes sense for us to acquire. I had a chat with my business partner. We had a look at, the contract and how the whole process would look like. But most importantly, I would say the most important thing is the number and what are your thesis, your scenarios. Okay, you acquire them. What if, right after the contract ends, they start paying and they churn? What if they stay another 3 months? What if they stay another year? What does these 3 scenarios look like? And are you willing to accept the worst case scenario? I always base everything on the worst case scenario. Are you willing to accept that? Because it might happen. And if you're willing to accept that and you think it still makes sense, then, go for it. So that's kind of how it all.
So there was some type of due diligence where you got access to the books. You were able to look at the monthly recurring revenue. You kind of had a sense, I assume, of some type of lifetime value and expectation on churn. And you were able to then go, okay, on spreadsheet, my worst case, best case. And then I assume you came up with an offer that made sense based upon that.
Yep, that's exactly that.
And then did you bring in an advisor to tell you hey, this is how you do the agreement, or because, for me, I remember the first time we bought a business, I didn't do it. My business partner had done many acquisitions before. This is back like 10 years ago. But it's like, it's a scary thing because it's like, it's a big responsibility. It's a big bet. So like, how did you do it without advisement? Did you do it with advisement? How did you overcome that psychological barrier?
Yeah, I mean, we did it with advisement. I mean, I did it with advisement, and my advisement is simply my business partner. He's done this before many times. We've got legal counsel as well on his end, so we just use that. Him and I already had a pretty decent idea on whether or not we wanted to move forward with it, but he had obviously a strong input. And yeah, he was the one that advised most of the deal on my end. For sure.
What do you look for in a business if you were to acquire another one? Like, what's like the core things that you're evaluating besides the MRR and the lifetime value?
I mean, I would just say for us in the lead gen agency space is how likely can you actually deliver results for the clients you're taking over? Just to disclose, in this acquisition, we didn't acquire their team. We just acquired their assets and their clients, not the team. And so we looked at the client portfolio they had, and I was like, how confident am I that we can actually deliver results up to what the client is expecting, so that we can keep those clients after, the contracting period is, the initial contracting period that they've signed is over. And that was really the most deciding factor. Because I mean, in lead gen, and I feel like we're opening a whole kind of Pandora box here, but it's like, I feel like some businesses, it's a lot harder to help than others. Sometimes you would assume that one business you'll struggle to get them leads, but actually it's the opposite. It's a bit of a weird science per se, but yeah, that was my main deciding factor. I was like, do we think we can help them? Do we think we can do equally as good as what these guys have done in the last years of working with them, or better ideally, so the clients can be even happier? And so those would be the main two things. And then on the back of that, for the numbers, is financially, what does that look like in terms of OpEx for us to acquire them? Do we need to hire more? Do we need to pay more in tools? Or can we absorb that with the current tech stack that we have and the current kind of economy of scales that we have throughout an entire portfolio of clients?
Dude, is there any, like, from a customer success standpoint, was there a requirement in the deal to bring on the old founders to like basically like massage the client base to make sure that they're sticking around, or or was it kind of a cold stop of like, we're buying the assets, we're buying the clients, like we're out? Like, what does that look like?
No, there was a nice kind of handover period where we got introduced to them. We had a couple meetings. We had meetings with both GTM teams. We had internal meetings with both parties, and we had meetings with the clients and both parties as well, where you got introduced and all that stuff. So it was pretty good. They really helped us a lot in making sure that the transition would be done smoothly. And again, we could continue to keep the clients after the initial contracting period was over.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's definitely you have to be tactful in that, I can imagine, because, it's a whole new set of humans, right? And they weren't part of you didn't sell them originally. Obviously you weren't fulfilling them before. And so now there's like kind of this like, oh no, like this is being sold, and am I getting what I bought? And it sounds like, to your point, that's kind of the crux of the issue, which is like, how do you make sure that you're fulfilling? How do you make sure they're happy? So that's fascinating. Yeah, it's a big move, and I feel like that's a huge opportunity, because more and more lead gen agencies, I think, will be open for sale, frankly. I mean, I think that there's a hot market. Yeah, because, well, think about it. Like, where a lot of agencies have grown rapidly, a lot more entering the space, and I think selling these contracts, these lead gen agency contracts, are relatively easy. The problem is that many, especially newer agency owners, are not good at fulfillment. And so I think that like when people, what I call the yo-yo effect, which is like agencies can scale up to about 10. And then if they're not real true operators, they're just good sales guys, then they start to get operationally constrained. And so then they go back, they churn out on the client, and then they go down to 3 or 4, and then they try again. By the 3rd or 4th attempt, people are either burnt out, or they're going to figure something else out. They're going to pivot. And I feel like at that moment, I think there's a lot of people in that space right now, honestly. And I think that if you approach them, with an opportunity to say, hey, look, I'll take this yo-yo off of your, the up and down, but it's like, hey, you're at 6 clients, you're probably overwhelmed, you probably don't want to fulfill for them anymore. Look, why don't we just do like an earn out deal where I'll pay you give me all the clients. I'll give you 50% of revenue moving forward on the client deals, and or for the next 3 months. And then after that, I keep the rest of them. And there's probably some agencies that are just like, you know what? I don't even want to deal with this anymore,
Sure.
So yeah, I think there's a big market for it, honestly.
It's funny you're mentioning this because I also see like I was talking to some people at Scott, but some of the leading agencies in the space, to not name them, I feel like that's one of the strategy they've had for a time. Where you look at the people that they're getting in their team, it's just previous agency owners that had like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clients, and they're like, hey, come in, we'll absorb all the costs. How much were you paying yourself? 4 grand. We'll give you 6 here, but you manage all these guys. You don't need to do anything about fulfillment. We'll run all of the ops. You just talk to the clients, talk to them about the strategy and the plays you want to kind of put in place, and you come work for us. And I feel like this is appealing to a lot of people because, I mean, I strongly believe agency owners and especially lead gen agency owners probably one of the most stressful kind of industry to be in. It's a tough industry. You better be freaking ready for it. I see so many people getting started and say, yo, I just go 1, 2, 3. I was like, yeah, it's easy. If you're good at sales, you'll get the clients. That's not a problem. It's like getting clients is fine. Everybody needs lead. Either you're selling cheap or you're selling not cheap, or you're just trustable and you did some work for them for free and they believe that you can do better. So you sold them on a good package and whatever. You'll see when it starts getting to like fulfillment and operation of like 5, 6, 7, 8 clients. I've had conversations with agency owners that I'm like, hey, come join us. And some of them, yes, are willing to. Some of them aren't. Yeah, I think it really depends on what game you're in. If you're in a game of just having like a cash flow business, if you're in a game of trying to create like an actual, like bigger business and a bigger thing, it really depends. Each is a bit different in there.
I think that though, when I saw that acquisition, because you announced it, I believe it was on LinkedIn, I thought like, oh my, that's what he's doing. And I'm like, that's genius, because I mean, I agree. It's like selling is the easy part. It's the fulfillment that's the hard part. And I think the ones that succeed over the long run are the ones that become true operators. And what I have seen is that there's two kind of forms of culture in the agency world that I've come across. And I talk, like almost all my clients at Reviops, my software company, are agency owners. And so I get to meet a bunch of them. Now, I think that the people that end up being my clients tend to be more on the operationally aware side, because they wouldn't be using a tool like mine. But there's this entire group of people in the agency world that are, I call them churn and burn kind of guys. And so what they do, and again, this isn't not naming names, but this is just, it's a fact. Their entire strategy is to sell faster than they churn. So what they do is they'll go and they'll like sell a contract on a 3 to 4 month cycle. They know they're going to churn on 80% of them. So they don't worry about like operational fulfillment. It's just basically get the contract, get a few campaigns out. And then it's like, well, let's go sell 3 more. We'll lose 1, but we'll have 3 more in the hopper. And that gets you through 4 months. And so I've seen those types of agencies run. And the problem is like, by the time that client reaches a good agency, they're jaded, And so I've heard that so many times, and you probably have too, where the client says, you're my 4th agency. You're like, you're the 5th person I've tried. Yeah. So, have you seen that kind of thing in the market, or any experience there?
Well, I think I'll just go back to your yo-yo point earlier. We've had that happen to us. I mean, I've done sales my whole life. Selling is not a problem. I'm a solo founder. I don't have a co-founder that's focused on the operations or the fulfillment. So definitely see, what you were mentioning earlier, signing too many clients. I mean, oh, fuck, I should have figured that out first. And then going back down to a lower amount of clients, trying to figure it out, and then just going a second time, etc. I feel like that's how we've been growing. It's a lot of like spike and then down, stabilize, and it's almost like, some form of investment. I won't name it, but some charts. It's like, going up, then it's stabilizing for some time, then it's going up again, then it's going back down. It's a bit all over the shop. But to your point, I've seen some people do this, but that's on the opposite of what I would want to do. Like for me, I would want to have an agency where we might take time to figure things out in the first 2-3 months, because that's what this is, right? Like when I get clients and people that get on calls with me and say, hey, do you guarantee leads? It's like, I don't guarantee anything. Because I mean, what we're doing here is we're doing a marketing experiment. I'm taking stuff, throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. You know, is your offer sticking? Is your current, case study sticking? Do you have enough social proof? Is your authority good enough? Is your product market fit a good product market fit? Do people actually need your services? We're testing all those things. You know, what messaging is going to work, what audience, what ICP, etc. And then once we find something that works, we then replicate and scale on that. So I tell people there's no way for me to guarantee anything on that end. But going back to the type of business I want to build is you sign a client, I want to become like an extensive, like a marketing arms of their company, like an extension of their company where they're working with us as like almost like their partner. I know it's kind of like almost taboo word to say partner in this industry because it mostly means that you have some rev share deal or whatever in place, but not like a partner, but just helping them powering the sales pipeline pretty much. And that is the opposite of trying to sign someone for 3 months and then having them churn on month 3 or month 4. We have some clients that have been with us for like 18 months. And ideally, my goal is I would want every client to be like that, where we can keep them for like a year and a half, go through the time again, test new approach again, and keep on delivering our results consistently.
So this is like something I've been trying. This is my personal belief, so doesn't make it right. But this is my personal experience. And I've been trying to kind of shout this into the ether of agency land because I believe it's true. For me, there's some fundamental tactical and strategic choices agency owners can make from day one that make a massive difference in terms of like day 360. And one of it is how an agency positions itself, which is what you just kind of alluded to, which is this long-term mindset. But two, for me in particular, mine was the strategic choice of what type of agency do I want to be. And what I mean by that is there's two different kind of camps, and I think both are viable paths. And some of the biggest agencies sit in the camp that I actually would argue against. Not to say that it's not good. It's I think more difficult, which is there's horizontal agencies and there's vertical agencies. And what I mean by that is, I'm talking about within the GTM lead gen world, there's kind of different fragments that I've seen. Some are like pure cold email, some are like pure LinkedIn, some are pure cold calling, and some are like hybrids of all of that. So that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a client selection type. And so for me, what we decided at our agency is we used to be a horizontal agency where we would take on, one random manufacturing guy and then one, payment processing guy and then one like legal, firm. And what I personally found was it was really hard to write copy and understand angles and understand personas across multiple client types well. And so for me, we found a niche in video production where we had this like one big client and they were just like, getting crazy results. I was like, wow, I can deliver for these people. This is awesome. This comes back to the point of like, it's so important, like what the market's doing. So video production is just hot. Everybody needs it. It's very easy to like explain, hey, do you got a big event coming up? Do you want to promote that? Everybody needs a video for something. Hell, we're on video right now. So for me, like for whatever reason that stuck. And so I then had a case study from the first client and then I went to the second client. I was like, hey, look at what I did for this company. And they're like, shit, I know that company. Can you do that for me? It's like, great. And then I had 2 case studies and then it started to snowball. So that's like kind of my suggestion to any new agency owners to go vertical and niche down. But some people argue against that. So I'm curious, like, what's your take on that? How do you feel about vertical, horizontal?
I would say my personal take on it is definitely horizontal. But just because of where we base as well, like there would be only so many SaaS in Asia Pacific that we can serve, right? And to me, I feel like the ceiling is a lot lower when you focus on one niche. But for someone listening and someone based out of the US, I would definitely go like into one niche because you guys have a crazy big market, so many people. That's where lead gen is hot and everyone's using it. American people are very used to getting cold outreach too, and so they respond pretty well to it as well, even though sometimes it also might mean that it's harder to get into some people's inboxes. I would say in a big enough market, I'll probably specialize in something, but with our situation, we like to be kind of client industry agnostic. And on the back of this, that's kind of just me being me, I guess. I just find it that like it's so exciting when you get a new client that's something you've never done before. Because yes, it'll be harder to understand persona, but the whole kind of process of studying them, understanding the persona and what offer, creating the offer and thinking about the angle and everything, it's going to be the same process no matter you're signing like a video production company, a SaaS, a fintech company, or a marketing agency. So you just follow the same step, but now it's like a whole new world again. And you're like, hey, like, is this? And then it's a lot of, we do a lot of stuff with the team internally, a lot of brainstorming. Then we present that back to the client, say, hey, here's what we're thinking. What's your thoughts on it? And it's just like exciting. I find it super exciting as opposed to just doing the same thing for the same industry would, to me, maybe be a bit more boring. But that's just, again, my personal
it's interesting you say that, because I literally had another agency owner say the same thing. They're like, I think I would get bored if it was the same ICP. And I think this is where it's like, it's so interesting is there's no one path. Anybody listening, like, you can do it both ways. And also I think context matters. Like your point about being in, your part of the world, it's a relatively small market compared to, say, the United States, right? And so there's these factors that matter. Yeah. It also, I think it like depends upon, what is somebody's skill set. I think for like a brand new first time agency owner, I would say vertical is an easier game to play. Because you're learning the skill of business, not just the skill of lead gen, not just the skill of client fulfillment, but literally just being a business person. And I think the hardest part about horizontal agencies is you got to be a pro at it, like, because you really have to be dialed on quickly learning new markets, which is what you find fun, right? And if you're not good at that, which is obviously you guys are great at that, then it's like, you're now doing mediocre results across like 20 different verticals. Whereas like in the verticalized side, it's like, okay, you can be mediocre for the first client, but you'll get a little bit better. And then you're just taking that same exact copy and that same exact list to the second client. So I think it is easier for the newbie out there. But I hear your point is that like, it can totally, I can imagine it once you got through the fifth or the sixth client, people would get bored. So yeah, I think it just depends upon what does somebody want and what are they good at? I think somebody who's really good at operations is a multi-time founder or somebody who's just cracked the code there. You could do horizontal. If you are just more of an operator and you don't really care about the funness of it and you're just like, I want to just scale and get people to just replicate it and just spin it up, I would say vertical. So I think there's no right answer, honestly.
For sure. And I think you said it right there. It's like, what are you good at? We talked about it in the opening of the podcast. It's like, if you're getting into this, you've probably done something before, unless you're a fresh grad, then that's a different topic. And I would say definitely be vertical and focus on one thing which you like or enjoy or think it's got the best shot to make it work. But if you're not and you've had any sort of work experience before, I would probably focus on what industries you were in, right? So like, let's say you worked in fintech, maybe then specialize in lead gen for fintech, or if you were in SaaS, etc. Or if you were, in a marketing agency, just because you understand the world, the pain points, the offers that they typically have and all these things, which is going to make what you'll do as a lead gen agency owner much easier to pretty much get started
That's
with.
a really good point, because I wrote this book that was based, it was called The $1 Million Sales Pitch, but it was based upon, I must plug Eugene Schwartz every single freaking podcast. But Breakthrough Advertising is still the best copywriting book on planet Earth. I can't help myself. I have to plug it every single time. So the bottom line is that specializing is critical, because what Eugene Schwartz talks about in his book is you deeply have to understand where people are on the awareness scale in terms of their buying journey. So what context are they buying within? So let's say we're using, I don't know, let's do something I know. So let's say it's like oil and gas software, right? And let's say it's for upstream oil and gas, and we're selling to a oil and gas driver, and we're selling a GPS solution. It's like, he is buying that piece of software within a very particular context. The guy gets lost on the roads. He's in the middle of the desert. He wakes up at 4 a.m. Like, there's things that this guy goes through that if you're just some random guy who came out of you would have no clue. And so now you're writing copy and you're making offers to this guy. You don't know what he's like. You don't know what his beliefs are. You don't know what his religion is. You don't know what his politics is like. You don't know what his personality is like. So you're essentially trying to communicate with an alien species. And so for me, the number one thing that I say in the book, the first paragraph or the first chapter is called Be a Subject Matter Expert. And the whole reason for that is because you get to speak like them and act like them and talk like them and meet them at the right context. And so I think that that's like a really good point you made, because if you're coming out of, say, fintech or maybe finance or insurance or wherever you came from before, you already have a leg up. And I'm not saying stay there forever. Maybe you're like, I'm sick of finance. Okay, well, do that for a few clients and get your reps in so you can start to understand the game of business. But I think the problem that happens a lot with new entrepreneurs is they think, I'm going to have a big idea and I'm going to go into some random new market with my big idea, not talk to anybody, and start to try to pitch it. And I'm like, if you want to waste 5 years of your life, go do that, because that's like the worst thing you could possibly do. But I think that's the reason why Combinator likes to invest in people that are solving their own problem, and they're solving, whether it's services or whether it's agency or whether it's software, to solve their own problem, because they know that that person is a subject matter expert because they're doing it for themselves. So that's a really good point you made.
Definitely.
So let me ask you this. I know that, obviously with the clay craze, you were one of the judges at this Sculpt event. So anybody not listening, or anybody listening, it's again this big event with Sculpt, with clay. And it was in San Fran, and there was this kind of GTM engineering kind of contest, I guess is a good way to put it, right?
Almost like an esport, like a clay World Cup
Yeah.
esport event. I mean, that's what they tried to make it be. So it's kind of was like.
And I asked Kellen from Clay Cafe, which is now called GTM Cafe, what he thought about this, because I thought, one, it was an amazing show. I mean, like, I don't know how Clay did it, but they somehow attracted these people that are basically like professional MCs. They're like professional like comedians / like presenters, because like the way they're just so energetic, it's almost like I'm watching like a talk show. And I'm like, the lighting, the whole thing, the way they put it on was so professional. And obviously you were one of the judges of this event. And what was happening was these GTM engineers had competed to get to this final round, and they had these clay tables. Again, if you don't know what clay is, Airtable meets Zapier meets, ChatGPT, all, yeah.
ChatGPT.
And it's to basically do waterfall enrichment and build lists. I feel like I'm plugging clay every single podcast because I'm explaining what it is. But that's how good they are at marketing, is they get me to talk about it. And so these people were basically competing, and they were competing to see who could craft the best, essentially, lists based upon certain criteria. And the reason that matters for anyone listening is clay is a relatively technical tool for people that are uninformed. Once you know it, you're kind of like, this is super basic. But if you don't know, it's kind of, intense experience. And so you need these people called clay engineers. I get a lot of people listening to this are rolling their eyes because they're like, dude, we know. But there's some people listening who have no clue. So I just want to like make sure I'm not completely off the rails for those people. And the thing that I thought was so interesting is that Clay created this term called the clay engineer to help explain that there's this whole role, this whole paradigm of people that need to be experts in their tool to deliver this value. And what I thought was interesting is that they did that whole thing, but hours before they announced that they were essentially launching an AI to do what the GTM engineer does. What did you think about that? I'm curious, because that was, some people didn't like it, some people don't care, some people think it's a good thing. So where do you sit?
Wow, what a question. What a way to put
Sorry,
me on the spot.
you don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. Of course, I'm joking. I think it's. So I think I personally don't care too much. I see why some people might be like, hey, they're trying to kill the GTM engineer role, because now if you can just ask AI to build that table, then they're just going to do it, and you won't even need a GTM engineer. You don't need an agency. Some people might say that they're trying to kill agencies as well. I think by looking and by kind of having a bit of a retrospective on what the event was about, it seems to me that Clay is really focused on enterprise, for sure. So they're trying to deliver enterprise value and not just have Clay be seen as a tool to support your outbound effort, but really a tool to do revenue operations, to do inbound, to do outbound. And even as we saw during the Clay conference, I think they were showing how they do recruitment with it. They were showing how they do operation and client onboarding with it. I mean, you can do a lot of things, right? It's a very powerful tool. Regarding what they launched and the whole kind of, it's almost like an MCP within Clay, right? It's like just like natural language to build Clay table, pretty much. I think they did it because everybody else is doing it. And it kind of just appears like, hey, look, I mean, every tool has it, why not have it? I also think that it will probably help like the mid-market companies that don't have a GTM engineer to be able to kind of have some sort of POC and be like, oh, I built this, it seems like it's working. Maybe we should hire someone to kind of come and operate the whole thing for us and just make it a bit more accessible to, like you said earlier, someone that doesn't actually know Clay. But on the flip side of that, I think you're never, I mean, I don't think for now that the GTM engineer role is going to die anytime soon, because the complexity of what you can do is only going to get more complex, right? Playing with API, plugging that with end-to-end, having that, playing with a bunch of other tools. Like there's so much you can do, but only someone that has that in-depth level of experience will be able to help you play those playbooks or run those kind of systems. I don't think you'll be able to build something like this with just a simple prompt. I mean, to give a bit of an analogy, if you look at tools like Lovable, yeah, great, you can code something in 2 hours by just typing natural language model. Ask anyone that's trying and do it and have it run and actually scale. It's not possible. It breaks, then you have to go back into it, and then you end up having to actually build codes, right? So it's great to kind of have your POC or to show examples of something simple. Is it great to actually have an in-depth systems or product that works?
Yeah,
I don't think it is.
No, it's a great
That's
point, because this is what Kellen and I were just talking about. So believe it or not, this is my second podcast today, and Kellen was on a few hours ago. I didn't realize I had two podcasts in a row, but so yeah, he's awesome.
Amazing.
So I think that to your point though is, and he had the same take, is that the Clay engineer, he's like, if you can push a button and make your job obsolete, then your job was never a job beforehand. It was just like, something that you were doing for the time being. And so I think that what him and I agreed on, which I'd like to get your take on, is that it's really about, for the good engineers, that I'm used to calling them engineers, the good GTM pros, the RevOps pros, the marketers, essentially the lead gen pros. I'm going to call lead gen. It actually will make them better, because it will allow them to go deeper on what matters and not focus on kind of the more button pushing stuff, right? But what I was saying to Kellen is like, my thing is that, man, I wouldn't want to be one of the button pushers, because it's like, if you're just the guy who just like, does the most basic like stuff, okay, you're probably in trouble in a year or so. But where I think the art of it comes from is like, to your point, is like, okay, we have to architect an entire process and strategy to get an output across multiple systems. And that takes thinking, and that takes orchestration, and that takes, it's not just button pushing. It's actually saying like, look, like we're going to do this first and this second and this third, and we're going to then have this output that's then going to lead to this thing. That's not something AI is going to come up with. Now, maybe in the future, maybe that will, but I think you still need a strategist in the business. You still need a great copywriter. You need somebody who understands the market. Yeah, you need somebody who's going to be the process systems thinker. And certainly AI is not going to do that, to your point. So I tend to agree with that point. And I would say Kellen actually, I thought originally when they came out with it, I'm like, man, that was a bad tactical marketing movement on their part, because it looks like they're kind of throwing the GTM agency to the side. But then he came back and was like, like it's actually just making the good GTM engineers go faster, and it's going to just, shave off the people that are button pushers. So I thought that was an interesting take.
That's a very good take. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But to your earlier point regarding architecting systems and everything, like that's one thing I very often tell my team, and I tell people when they ask me about Clay. I've been trying to train here people locally out of Thailand on how to use Clay. So it's one of my big mission, and because of really then I can have them work for me. So I've been teaching people about Clay and talking to people about Clay a lot. And I often say, you don't need to be a technical person. You don't need to come from like a computer science background or anything. All you need to is to have great logic and to be an organized person. If you have great logic and understand strategy and understand some shape or form of strategy, but you might not even have to, because you might have a strategist in the team with you that say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. Help me build that. And then you will only know the steps on how to do that. And the steps is just like pretty much logic and being an organized person, having your SOPs, having your templates and all these things. So definitely on top of being good at problem solving, because I mean, I think that's great with Clay is that there's 20 different ways to do the exact same thing. You could be doing the same thing in 20 different ways and it would all work, right? So it's only a matter of like, if you're just doing this for a project, then it's fine. But if you're doing this at scale, is that the most efficient way of us doing it? Like, should we be spending like one credit here, or should we be spending an API kind of call instead? Should we actually be spending anything, or can we find any of the native free function of Clay to kind of have a workaround around how to get that? Right. So there's always ways to kind of make a process and make your Clay flows more efficient. And I think lastly on the button pusher, yeah, I mean, I don't think they have much space in the space if they don't specialize and are really trying to get more in depth at doing all things Clay rather than just building lists. Because building lists, I already know some agency owners that tell me, hey, I just type this in my natural language kind of chatbot, and there's a bunch of end stuff that happens in the back end, and then 10 minutes later I have X amount of Clay table that I pulled from 3-4 different data sources, and that comes without any human interaction. So yeah, if you're just a button pusher, I definitely try to upskill yourself and go more in depth with the technicality of the tool.
And also it's going to change the way that it's interesting actually. Let me take a sidestep. It's interesting that you are training people locally, because I think that that's like it's a very hot and in-demand profession. People it's like sexy. It's like people want to do it. But it also, it's actually, to your point, it's more than just tactically pushing buttons. It's like the actual deeper challenge to teach people is, okay, so what? Like, it's like you have this thing and you can do waterfall enrichment, you can connect to some endpoints. But I think the deeper challenge in teaching people is like, what do you do with it? What's the overarching strategy? And you know what, I've actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't seen anybody in a course do that particularly well. People talk about like, okay, you push the button, this is how you do the endpoint, here's an HTTP, request, and here's how you connect the bounce band. But I haven't seen somebody go like in a real deep thing going like, okay, today we're going to, here's the vision, and this is how we're going to think about it. There's 4 ways we can do it. Like I haven't seen that. And maybe you know some people that are selling courses like that.
Yeah, I think to your point as well, it's to the fact that when you're selling services and it's vertically, it's an early morning for me. When you're vertical and you focus on some industries, then yes, you will be able to kind of share that and say, yeah, the strategy is this or the strategy is that, because you're always talking about the same strategy. When you're horizontal, it might be a bit harder, but to your point, yeah, I think I've seen a lot of course sellers that focus on the Clay side of thing, the copywriting, but they don't talk about like, yeah, but what about before that? How do you choose what to talk about? What do you choose? What type of leads to find? What do you choose? The angle of how do you come up with an offer for the clients? If they don't have an offer, like what type of offer would you be building, et cetera, et cetera. Not many people teach that. And I don't think it's a very teachable. I mean, you can teach some elements of it, but I think it will just only come by doing. That's the type of stuff where you got to be doing strategy for clients for like, X amount of time and repetition until the point at which you become really good at it. And you're like, oh, I really understand that. And I know how to have any client come to me. I mean, that's the point that I've reached at that time, but I've had, like 9-10 years of experience in sales and business development. But it's like, you need enough repetition to be like, whatever your business is, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, okay, so you're selling to this. Oh, so that means I'm assuming your offer is usually that or this. And that's the level you want, because without that, the rest is kind of useless.
Yeah, it's like the question of like, how do you get to the base hypothesis of any type of marketing test, right?
Yeah.
And it's like when you're going into a particular market like we were talking about, you start out with like, you better be a subject matter expert, or you better be extremely good at asking questions to uncover, the core hypothesis. But then it's like the thing that I think that's the next movement in the industry, in my opinion, is that the market is going to have to move, if they want to succeed, I think longer term, to a much hyper focus on attribution and also on A/B testing. Because like right now, it's like for 99% of the agencies that I have talked to, if I ask them a question, a very simple question, but it's like a question you kind of should know the answer to, which is like, which of your qualified leads, or even better, which of your revenue is attributed to which offer on the top of funnel? And now they might go, well, it's probably this one, right? But it's like, if you actually ask for actual dollars and cents and like actual total deals precisely, nobody can really answer it very well. So this attribution problem is difficult. But then I ask like mid funnel, okay, like which of your how many subject lines have you tested? And across all clients in the last quarter, which subject line got the most sends? And of those, say any subject line with more than 3,000 sends, which one has the highest interested reply rate? Like that's like a question that like nobody can answer right now. And what's crazy about that to me is that if you could answer that question, it would be like, okay, hypothesis 1, 2, 3, 4 for my offer. Here's my top 4 subject lines. Then it becomes more like ad buying, because that's like such a standard thing to do in ad buying, right? But we haven't gotten there.
You look at your headline, you look at your, Well, I think the reporting as well is what's making it very challenging. We were struggling for the longest time in being able to find, reporting that auto syncs with what we're doing across HeyRich and Smart Lead, and that will be able to show us what ICP is working, what country is working, what company size is are we getting most of the reply from, what sub-industry, what department are the people from, all of our copy, was it variant A or variant B that, got us the best reply, etc., etc. And for the longest time, we had to manually compile reporting and all that stuff. But to your point on attribution, I would kind of debate that a bit, because I feel like you live in a world where everyone's kind of buying decision journey is going to be so different. I mean, hell, some people might watch your podcast and be like, who is this Ben guy? And then Google you, right? Let's say they come across you on IG, on YouTube Shorts, if you put some shorts up there. They might then Google you. And they might come straight from Google and then inquire directly, and you would never know that they came from your podcast, right? And someone might receive a DM from you, a cold email. They might also Google you, or they might reply to that. Or they might go to your website directly because you have that in your profile on LinkedIn. So they would appear as like a direct search, and then don't on the lead magnet. And you say, oh yeah, they came from the lead magnet, but actually they came from your LinkedIn profile. So I feel like attribution, I don't know. I guess if you're an SMB, if you're an agency owner, I don't think it matters too much, in my opinion. You should just have a general idea of what's working. And the way we do it on the sales call, I would be asking like, hey, how did you hear about us? And I just use that as my kind of way to be like, oh, well, that call, that guy heard about me from there or here or there. Or, I mean, I would know if it's called outreach, right? Because we have different links for that. Anyway, and then just focusing on doing those things and doubling down on those things that you keep hearing people coming from. Call outreach, content.
And that's a great point, is that I think at like it's like kind of like one of those adages of like what works at one stage will not work at another stage. And I think that's where it's like any blanket advice, I think, is like always debatable. And so I think you're right, is like if you're just getting started or if you're just launching your very, very first campaign, you have bigger problems than attribution. You just got to like, am I actually do I have a decent offer whatsoever? Like, am I getting results, period, let alone like, is this A variant versus B variant working? If you're not getting replies, maybe start there, right? And I think that a lot of people overthink it at the beginning. I think where this begins to matter is when there's either large marketing spend, large budget spend, or it's a more sophisticated operation where you actually have a revenue operator, or you have, a client that's investing $10,000, $20,000 a month. So that's a very interesting point. And it's like the same thing, like for me, it's like, should I use cold email? Should I use LinkedIn? Should I use phone calls? And for me, I'm like, look, like if you're just getting started, like if you're just launching an offer, don't use cold email. It's just my humble opinion. I think it's far more effective to either cold call people or cold LinkedIn DM people with your hypothesis, say, hey, I'm just getting started, I want some feedback, and start conversations like that. Because it's like, look, cold email, as you and I know, it's far more technical than sending a LinkedIn message, right? There's a lot more moving parts. You have to get the domains to inbox ratio right. You got to get your infrastructure right. There's a bunch of software involved, and it's challenging. And the results, like from a percentage standpoint just are not nearly as good as, say, just a standard old LinkedIn.
As LinkedIn, for sure. For sure.
So look, I know we're over an hour now, so I'm going to start wrapping it up. But before we call it, what I like to do is ask one final question of every guest, and then we'll definitely make sure to get your contact information. So this is a big question. So I don't know if you watched the end of any of my podcasts, but I always ask,
Not yet, no.
what is the number one thing you would want to leave people with as a piece of advice or as anything, just as a human being? It doesn't have to be business.
Well, I would say, I think I always say the same thing is, no matter what you're setting your mind to and what you're trying to achieve, just know that it takes time. That's it. And I said it earlier, right? Some people, that's them, that's their life, that's their success. And again, you're seeing some people that made it in 6 months by vibe coding some stuff and they made 2 million ARR, great. And they're probably the 0.1% or 0.01% that you're seeing. You're not seeing all the other people that actually have been working on some products and XYZ for years and still haven't made it. So anything of greater impact and of great value in your life will take time, and will take, by time I mean discipline and repetition. You're gonna have to put in the hours, put in the repetition, and maybe try and get 1% better every day. I very often reference back to the Atomic Habit book, where they talk about being 1% better every day. You don't have to be 1% better every day, but you have to focus on making something 1% better every day, right? So your process, your sales pitch, the way you communicate to clients, your product, or if we're not talking about business, just yourself, right? Your mindset, your health, your fitness, or whatever else it is. But great things take time. So that's definitely, that would be my takeaway.
Great piece of advice. That what I asked one of my old mentors, I don't think she would consider me a mentor, but I felt like she was when I was younger, a woman named Huda Akil, who won the Basic Biology Award, which is like the Nobel Prize for biology, essentially. And I was her personal trainer, of all things. And so I get to talk to her for an hour a day in the morning when I was 23. Nice. And I asked her, I'm like, look, like you met all these famous people, the Dalai Lama, all these world leaders. What's the number one thing that makes somebody successful? And she said, like, look, just like applied effort over time. That's it. And so I got really obsessed with that. And I found like my two favorite words were assiduous, and then sedulous. So if you look those up, assiduous, sedulous mean the same thing, which is just persevere over time. Just keep on trying, and I think that's like, it's more important than intelligence. It's more important than just your taste. It's just, if you put enough reps on anything, you will start to see things other people do not see, because you've been there before. Even if it takes you 20 times longer, just keep at it. The key thing is don't chase rabbits. There's a great quote from Alex Hormozi. We have to talk about Alex at least 5 times during a podcast, which is more, better, and new. More, better, and new. And he says, you most of the time want to do more. Sometimes you want to do better. Rarely do you want to do new. And the answer is because new is risky. New is it's a thing where it always looks better than it is. And so that's a good way to end it, is just stick to it, pivot where necessary. In the beginning, you're going to feel like you're pivoting all over the place. So this comes back to the principle of what works at one stage won't work at another thing. So in the beginning, go get crazy, go try a bunch of crazy stuff. But once you find that beat, like for you, it was lead gen, in Fiverr. You found it, then you went deep. And it's like same thing. Is go on your crazy journeys out there, everyone listening. But when you find your thing, go deep. It's a good way to end it. Where can people find you on the internets out there?
They can just simply type richly.co. You can find me there. And then on LinkedIn, you can also just search Thibault Garcia, and I'll come up. You can just message me. You can add me. You can let me know what you think about the podcast with my French accent all over it. It was great. Thanks a lot for having me.
You're welcome. And I can't imagine doing this in French. So I probably wouldn't have I'd have a much worse French accent than you have an English accent. And I don't speak French. I speak Portuguese. But anybody listening, there's going to be some show notes down in the description. There's going to be some links. And so if you want to go, check them out, please do that. Give them some love. And anybody needing lead gen, obviously you are the guy. So I'll signing out, everyone. I'll see you guys on the next episode of the Next Gen Sales Leader podcast. Have a great rest of your day. See ya.